From the MVD Rewind collection comes the epic documentary 1982 Greatest Geek Year Ever. And boy, was this good. Wow. I'm coming at this as somebody who lived through that year, and I was 8 years old in that year. And boy, was it. And I'm not a mega nostalgist for the 80s, and I'm not a big back in my day guy. But when you look back and think about it, boy, was 82 a great year to be an 8-year-old who liked pop culture. And it's one of those years where the movie keeps going. This documentary keeps going. Originally, I guess this was done for TV. This version is 165 minutes. It could have been 3 times as long as far as I'm concerned. It could have never ended as far as I'm concerned, because this really just focuses on the movies. It gets into some peripheral stuff, listening to the commentary, they said they initially wanted to have it be about everything, and they said each of these interviews they were doing were like 5 hours, and like this would be a documentary that would never end if you did it on everything. So it's not about, it could easily have been, but it's not about TV, comic books, music, video games, all that other stuff. It's really just focuses on the movies with some peripheral references to things related to the movies. And so, yeah, 82 was an amazing year. As this goes along, they mention another movie, and you're like, my God, that was the same year, and they keep going. And it almost becomes ridiculous with how many amazing things that people still talk about or that had a big impact came out in that one year of 1982. You think about a year now, and I blink and the year goes by, and I think about any given year in recent years, and yeah, there's always some cool stuff. There's always great stuff. But when you find these certain years where it was just like lightning struck repeatedly and nonstop for 365 days, it's pretty amazing. Now, there was a lot of junk in 82 that nobody talks about, but there's so much in here that is just so good and interesting and fascinating. Also Megaforce. It's a delight. So this is presented 5.1 stereo surround or 2.0 stereo, directed by Roger Lay Jr. And I'm going to tell you some of the people that are in this movie. This is another thing that's ridiculous in the most wonderful sense. As you watch this, they'll talk about a movie, and then they'll talk about another movie, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, cool. It's like, oh, they're going to talk about Star Trek 2. That's cool. Oh, cool. There's the director. That's really cool. Oh, and the studio guys, and you get the entire like making of and behind the scenes and inside stories of how these things came to be, and fan reaction and famous people who are fans. And then, so Nicholas Meyer, the director, cool, they got him to talk about it. Then Shatner shows up, and you're like, they got Shatner to do this? And was my reaction repeatedly throughout this. I guess the people who made this movie are very well connected in the industry, and they brought in so many people. And what they set out to do as well, which I didn't realize until I was listening to the commentary, is that they get into a lot of stories that are not in the special features of the official releases. They get into stories that the studios maybe don't want on there. They said about Poltergeist, there's all this behind the scenes controversy. Did Tobe Hooper direct it? Did Steven Spielberg direct it? None of that works its way on to the official releases because the studio doesn't want to get into that. But this documentary has that. This documentary has John Sayles talking about the script he wrote for what would ultimately become E.T. but never got made. And there's a lot of stuff. Like, you can't believe the people that are in this documentary. And at 165 minutes, it rockets right along. It never feels boring. You always just keep wanting more. They talk about the E.T. video game, which lets them sidestep a little bit into Atari, and they have the guy who created Pitfall is on camera. You have the guy who was the main man behind Atari is in this. They talk about the burying of the E.T. cartridges. Like, it really gets into so much, but it doesn't feel breakneck. And at first, I always worry about a lot of modern documentaries that are just a lot of, they look like this. There are a lot of talking heads of people cracking wise and people who had nothing to do with what the subject is, but they have, something smart alecky to say about it. This isn't that. There's a little of that about things that warrant it, but they talk about Megaforce, and you have Barry Bostwick on camera basically just making fun of Megaforce. I enjoy Megaforce. I think the theme song is one of the great 80s theme songs, period. But, I mean, the movie's not good. It's fun because it's goofy and silly, but they really dig into Megaforce with people who worked on it and the star of the movie and people who, are fans of it. And the whole thing is like this. It keeps going, and it keeps digging into things, and it digs into things that you think it wouldn't, like Year of Living Dangerously, and they get into talking about the casting of Linda Hunt in the Year of Living Dangerously. They get into Mad Max. They get into, really, you name it. It's so good. It's so well produced. They have licensed clips. Very few documentaries do that, especially documentaries of this style. Usually it's a lot of, still images that are public domain, or they take clips from the trailer because it's easier to get around copyright with that. And crappy looking YouTube clips and anything that's lesser quality that they had to deal with. They put like they set it back on making it look like it's on a TV screen to kind of mask the fact that it might be like YouTube quality. But for the most part, the clips from the movies look great. The stills that they use look great. The photos of memorabilia that they use look great. It's so good. Can you tell I enjoyed this? It's just I'm just gonna keep. I mean, it's funny. It's fascinating. It just really digs into each movie that they talk about. Like you feel like you've just watched the supplement section on each film that they dig into on this. And yes, there is a little snark here and there, but there's not much of that, and that was good because I really don't like those. I love the whatever documentaries like VH1's used to do, where it's theoretically I love, but they're just trashing everything because because it's the modern day and they're so much better than that. This is just all done out of love from people who lived through the era or who looked back at the era, and it was a really fun era. So extras on this, we have 2 commentaries, and that's a lot of content. It's 165 minutes twice with those commentaries. I love commentaries on documentaries because they really get into how they made them. So like they talk about how they were able to get interviews with these people and the circumstances of doing the interviews and why some were done sort of through like a Skype sort of thing versus in person. And again, the people they got is amazing. So really, really cool stories and insight in those commentaries. Commentary by Roger Lay Jr. and Mark A. Altman. Commentary by Scott Manns, Thomas P. Vitale, and Mark A. Altman. The Fans Speak Fan Favorite Films featurette. That's 16 minutes and a lot of fun. It's individual fans self-recorded talking about a specific movie and what it meant to them. So if I recall, it's one is Star Trek 2, one is Megaforce, and the other, he talks about a few different things while sitting in a throne made out of VHS tapes. 2022 San Diego Comic-Con panel, that's 28 minutes. And that's what some of the creative team, unfortunately, it has this weird music looped a little bit below the dialogue, but loud enough that it's really kind of annoying, and I had to turn it off because I don't know if they put that in there to cover up for music that happened to be playing in the background that might be copywritten, and sometimes you can put music over it to mask it. I don't know if it was for that reason or something else, but it was way too distracting, so I had to turn it off. Original theatrical trailer, which was 1 minute, and then you get trailers for other MVD Rewind Collection titles, which, very nice touch. All but one are from 1982. I had to look them up. I was looking at them and I'm like, yeah, I think these might all be from 82. One of them, Liar's Moon, at least IMDb says 81, but the rest are all from 82. It's One Dark Night, Swamp Thing, House on Sorority Row, Liar's Moon, Last American Virgin, and Mortuary, all of which are fun titles and available from MVD Rewind Collection. Now let me show you the packaging because it's cool. So you get the, is this gonna be in focus? Probably not. So packaging, pretend like you can see what it is. Packaging is slipcase, and MVD does their thing where they look like an old Media Home Entertainment cover, and the slipcase slips to reveal the same thing. Sorry about the focus issues, guys. And then you have the disc, which looks like a VHS face label, and you crack it open, and the inside looks like some kid's super cool bedroom from that year. Again, sorry about the focus. I'm doing it anyway. And then it comes with, as all of these Rewind Collection things do, a mini poster of the cover. So I won't dwell on things you can't see. But, and the menu screens do this too. The supplement menu is recreation of a kid's bedroom, and you just want to look at all the details and go, oh, I had that. And looking at the menu, I'm like, you could have done a documentary on that, and a documentary on that, and a documentary on that, because there's so much. So not faulting these guys. They did an amazing documentary, and I guess this version too, they were saying in the commentary, versus the TV version, this has stories and content that weren't in the TV version, where whatever network they did it for said, we don't want you to put that in there. That might be, somebody might be upset by that. Well, it's back in this version. So 1982, greatest geek year ever. At the end of it, they have a teaser for a 1984 documentary. I always thought 84 was maybe one of the best years of the 80s for pop culture. So I hope they do that. At any rate, this is really, really good. From MVD Rewind Collection on Blu-ray is 1982, greatest geek year ever.